nice meeting. You may be the nicest.
Brethren, the Senior Grand Warden of British Columbia and Yukon, Right Worshipful Brother Ken Christofferson.
Thank you, Worshipful Master.
Brothers, ladies, the future of Freemasonry, it's an honor to be here today. It's always tough to talk after a past a dinner, so if you have to sleep, try to do it quickly. Great things are happening in the Kootenays. I'm very pleased to be here. These district events are very, very important. We have several districts regularly put on district education days. And it brings the craft together. It brings a purpose to Masonic education. It's extremely valuable, and I applaud you for resurrecting it in this district. First thing I have to do is change the title of my paper, because I don't know how it happened, but I think I sent out the wrong. This is the real purpose of Freemasonry. So I'm going to start with a question, and I need some feedback. What is the real purpose of Freemasonry?
Making good men better, brother.
Good, thank you. Any more? Okay, I think, all right, my brother?
Worshipful brother, I was going to suggest, without the standard answer, is to find men of good moral character who have that light within themselves, to want to be joined together with other brothers in a fraternity, but in a way that instills and upholds good moral values for your family, for your community, and for you as an individual man.
Excellent, excellent. Any other thoughts? Those are the answers I was looking for, by the way. So many say the real purpose of Freemasonry is to make good men better, so that they can live an ethical and moral life and contribute to their communities. The simple way to put it, that I put it, is the making of Masons. We'll get back to that in a while. I recently read a paper from New Zealand that suggested that in order to save Freemasonry, we need to make it fit today's society. It suggested that we establish elite ritual delivery teams, and they would be the only ones who deliver the ritual. We would only allow those lodge officers who have skills in an office to hold an office. And the rest of the Masons, and this is in the paper, the vast majority are only there to socialize. That's a pretty radical thought. It gave me pause to think about what I thought the real purpose of our craft is. I also read a paper from one of our past Grand Masters who talked about the threat from within. That threat is an ongoing drive from some to change the fundamentals of Freemasonry, to make it easier to be a Freemason. Easier by eliminating the requirement for a stated belief in the Supreme Being. Modernize the ritual to abandon the classic sentence structures that require effort of deeper study to grasp the embedded lessons. And finally, to obscure the line between right and wrong by watering down the definition thereof. Should it be easier to become a Freemason? When you consider these two papers, one is challenged to come up with his own answer to that question. What is the real purpose of Freemasonry? if Freemasonry's purpose is to make Masons, then how does that work? What are the principles that enable Freemasonry to accomplish its real purpose, as it has over these many hundreds of years? What you're about to hear is my view. I would like to hear your view. I think we have hidden mysteries that are in plain view. They've stood against the test of time and the whims of fickle society over and over again. It takes a lifetime to make a Mason. Let me repeat that. It takes a lifetime to make a Mason. One becomes a Mason and a better Mason and man by serving the craft and the Masons in it, and by studying our science of right living. However, none of the above are possible without developing trusted Masonic relationships. To be an inactive Freemason is a contradiction in terms. We are instructed that there is no right without a parallel duty. We are charged to make daily advancement in Masonic knowledge. And lastly, we have committed to greet you as a brother. Take note, all of the aforementioned contain action verbs and require the Mason to do something important on his journey to becoming a better Mason and man. So how does a Mason serve the craft? Study our philosophy and develop trusted relationships. First, consider the Mason's part in delivering our rituals and ceremonies. When a brother steps out on that floor of the lodge to present a part of the ritual, large or small, he is engaging himself in an ancient and essential principle in Freemasonry. He is serving the craft by learning himself to become a more proficient in the teachings contained in our rituals, and then by providing instructions on our science to those following behind him on their journeys. This is the making of Freemasons. Mohammed said there's no greater gift than gaining knowledge and sharing it with others. Two things happen. The sincere candidate will become a better man, having listened carefully to the knowledge being shared with him, thereby opening his mind to something bigger than himself. Also, quiet listening is an act of respect to the teacher. Humility is the mark of an accomplished Freemason. Not long ago, I attended a lodge conferring a fellowcraft degree. First, we celebrated one of our beloved brother's 99th birthday at the festive board. Then in the degree, that same brother delivered a 15-minute part of the ritual without a single prompt and with deep feeling. The candidate was captivated, as was every member in attendance. The work delivered by that elder made every brother who bore witness a better man and Mason. The second thing that happens is that the brother presenting the ritual becomes a better Mason for his experience. As he memorizes his work, he opens his mind to a better understanding of the meaning contained therein. He exercises his mind, which science holds is beneficial to our long-term health. When you are memorizing the ritual, and I always love this, When you are memorizing the ritual, it is your time. It is difficult to concentrate on the work that you're trying to learn if other distractions interrupt you. How often do you get, in this busy world, your own time? Such is the studying of Freemasonry. Such is the studying of the Freemasonry's philosophy. The Mason that works diligently to learn and deliver a small part ought to be equally as valued by his peers as the one who delivers large parts with less difficulty. This profound exchange touches the very heart of Freemasonry. While there's an important role for accomplished degree teams to play, to assign this essential task to an elite group of ritualists only is to deny so many Masons their opportunity to serve the craft and grow as a Mason and a man. A Mason serves the craft by taking a lodge in his, an office in his lodge or Grand Lodge. It is an opportunity to give back to that lodge that who has given so much to you. Our organization is unlike so many that are grounded in controversy, competition, and self-interest. Freemasonry, by its own determination, is required to work in harmony and happiness. Our protocols and decorum, when properly applied, enable the officers to achieve that lofty goal. Few get it perfect from the start, but with the kind support of their brothers, most develop the skills to lead a lodge in humility and competence and confidence. The Mason that takes on the office accepts another opportunity to refine that rough ashlar and to rise to the high standards in respectful servant leadership. To hold a Masonic office is a privilege and a valuable component of a Mason's journey. To allow only skilled officers to hold that office is, yet again, to deny many the opportunity to grow, become a better man and Mason. And finally, to actively work to develop trusted relationships is an obvious path to becoming a better Mason and man. Trusted relationships go far beyond casual acquaintance. They are the ties that have been binding the craft together for centuries, and will do for centuries to come. One only has to consider the 5 points of fellowship that clearly articulates the character of a trusted Masonic relationship. Just pause for a moment and run those who know them, run them through your mind. They're very important. To work to build and nurture trusted Masonic relationships is to serve the craft in an essential manner. For example, know that the Masonic handshake goes well beyond being a mode of recognition. It builds trusted relationships. Published studies state that trusted physical contact, including a sincere handshake, actually improves our sense of well-being and longevity. It's a proven fact. To greet a brother on the level with the trusted handshake is to enrich his soul and yours. During an exchange of handshakes, one of the wise brothers I know often replies to the question, "How are you?" And he says, "Better for having greeted you, my brother." The sincere handshake is important. Do it well and do it often. Hence, Freemasonry cannot drift into becoming a social club. It's far too important for that. Society will change around us until time is no more. Our fraternity must adapt to those changes in ways that we can't even imagine. However, to accomplish the true goal of Freemasonry, we must hold on to those essential principles so that our gentle craft can be making Masons for the whole of their Masonic journeys for centuries to come. In closing, I once delivered a paper on the threat of non-participation. And it is indeed a threat to Freemasonry. Instead, I chose to write this one on the joy of participation. Because as you have been informed, the true aim of Freemasonry is to unite in the grand design of being happy and communicate that happiness so that the tenets of our honored institution may be transmitted through our lodges, pure and unimpaired, from generation to generation. This and the aforementioned paper emphasize the importance of actively participating in Freemasonry in order to reap the benefits of Freemasonry. Now, I expect the audience gathered here today generally participates in Freemasonry, or they wouldn't be here. So again, I'm singing to the choir. So what's to be done? I have a suggestion. As there is likely a reluctance to impose mandatory participation as a requirement for membership, as is done in observant lodges, very successfully, I direct you to the West Gate. In the 6-Step to Initiation program, during discussions and interviews with potential candidates, I urge you to make a point of informing them that participation is expected, and without it, there is little value in joining the craft. Non-participants leave others to do the work. That's not Masonic. Later in his journey, if for no plausible reason that candidate drifts into non-participation, take the time to remind him of the day that important duty was communicated to him and hold him accountable. Now let's circle back to where we started. The real purpose of Freemasonry is to make Masons. All Masons have a role to play in that great enterprise. So I'll leave you with an important question. If the purpose of Freemasonry is to make exemplary Masons and men, then what changes to Freemasonry will impair its ability to do so? What can we change, and what must we leave unchanged? Thank you. But I'd like an answer to the question first. Has anyone got any comments? What can we leave unchanged, and what can we change?
Very worshipful brother, thank you for that presentation. I was listening to it, especially the comments about having just designated degree teams and not encouraging them to go through the chairs. Everybody in here has gone through the degrees. Everybody has proved themselves to be such. When you prove yourself to be such, that's when you learn. When you receive the degrees, you're not learning anything. You're just knowing that whoever's presenting it to you can remember the stuff that they're presenting to you. And it's not until you actually learn it for yourself that you will start learning. So by having only designated degree teams and having only designated members to go through the chairs or rule the lodge, You're not encouraging and giving the brethren the full experience of becoming a Mason. Through a journey through the chairs, you take on the role of learning how to set up a festive board, how to organize a festive board, how to prepare the lodge room, how to secure the lodge room, how to, all the lectures that you do. And finally, it gives you the opportunity to sit in the east if you've gone through all the chairs. You've done all the lectures, you can be the ruler of the lodge for that 1 year, the benevolent ruler. If you don't set up the members for success, you're setting up the lodge for failure. So that's the way I feel of it. And every time I do a lecture or relearn the part, I'm learning something more new every time. Because you don't just learn it once and know all the parts. Especially, you made a little bit of reference there to the address to the brethren. And that is a phenomenal lecture. And every time I practice it, I learn something new. And to the benefit of the brethren, just because they did their examination, that's just starting their road. And we should not be hindering them to follow down it farther.
Very well put, thank you. I think a couple of things that came out while I was listening to you was, if it's that good, a learning experience, why don't we help those coming behind us to be ritualists? One of the things that I see happening is very encouraging is we have these quite long lectures, and they're breaking them up into smaller pieces. And the fellow who's been given that lecture for 5 or 10 years says, come on, work with me on this, I'll give you a piece of this. And he gets up, opens, gives the Mason a smaller piece, and then comes back and closes. Help him to learn the experience of participating in the ritual. I think that's extremely valuable. One thing that I would also say about it's hard to learn when you're going through the degrees. I think I would suggest that the first degree is like a deer in the headlights, as we all know. The second degree, you pick up a little more. And the third degree, you're starting to learn the language a little bit, so you pick up a little more. But one of the things that you learn more than anything else is there's something different going on here. This is not the ordinary world. And I think that learning experience opens your mind up. So, thank you. My brother.
Worshipful Christofferson. Mike and I are in the same, Brother Gibbons and I are in the same team. So most of the time, him and I agree. But I think what Mike said and some of the stuff that you've said is subsequent to what we have to do first, is we have to change perception of society, the evolution of the perception of what Freemasons are. And historically, Freemasons were quite reverent. A lot of that has changed. People don't understand what we are and what we stand for, what we do and what we can do. Because we can do a whole lot of stuff. The young guys and old guys and all of us. I've been to Master 3 times. And what you're saying is every time you learn, and every time, oh, man, I messed up over there. Well, I can do better over here. Oh, I think I should help that guy. Because that guy, showed me that he cares. But why does he care? Well, I'm not sure why he cares. But we have to show people to care and to buy into it. We're not getting full buy-in. You're only going to get more Masons when people believe in it. You don't have enough people believing in Masonry. Stuff like this is good because it makes people like me, who sometimes go a little astray. You did a great job. I loved your thing. I mean, yeah, I had a big lunch too. And I was
You didn't fall asleep though. I saw that.
Very close. But you know what? I think it's great. I'm not into the esoteric stuff. I want you guys like this, not you, but I want you guys like this coming to us with elevator speeches for the reasons to be, not because we're making them into better guys, because we're giving them a reason for being. We're giving them belief systems. We're making them better guys. The other thing we have to do is we have to make it fun, okay? And by sitting here just going through the rituals, bing, 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 but you gotta tell them what the rituals mean. And we're not really telling them what the rituals mean. If you look through some of the other lodges, like Grand Lodge in California, you explain this stuff. Everybody takes this stuff, and they go, what did I really learn? First couple times I went through it, what did I learn? Every time I do the senior wards, like, or the other main lectures, I learn. I don't like going back any further than the junior wards lecture, but I learn more stuff. When I listen to this guy, I learn more stuff. Listen to guys like yourself. Where's my buddy Al? He brought me into this, and I totally believe in it. But that's what we gotta get. We gotta get guys like Al, and maybe even guys like me, promoting this. We're not selling it hard enough. And tell your boss to do that. And I know he wants to do it, but we can do this more than step by step. Step by step comes after. But we gotta get people into the gate, over through that gate first. So I said enough.
Thank you. You said a lot. Let me try to unpack it, as they say.
I need your speech.
Media world. Again, this is my perspective. We got enough Masons. We're getting enough Masons. For the whole time I studied, I was a chairman of the membership committee. I studied numbers right back to 1965. Almost without exception, we brought in enough Masons to grow the craft. We lost more than we brought in. They quit.
Why?
Well, there's the magic question, and that's what we're trying to talk
That's what
about.
I'm saying.
I think, from my perspective, we're not coaching like we used to. So they're not learning, to your point, in the same way that they used to learn, although that doesn't help going back to 1965 when the decline started at 10% a year. The new member pathway, and I was really excited when you brought this up, because this is one of my pet programs now, has a curriculum for taking the Mason through the degrees. And he's got coaching, and when he comes out of the back end of that, he knows a lot about Freemasonry. Probably more than the majority of Freemasons in the craft. That allows him to become a participant, because he knows how he's supposed to behave, he knows how he's supposed to function, he knows what officers do, he knows what Grand Lodge does. He can be a stakeholder in the craft. If you don't do that, when he gets to the end of the third degree, and that's when we lose the majority of the members, he says, I don't get it, I'm comfortable here, I don't feel part of this. You've got to make him feel part of it before he finishes that last degree. So to your point, we need to coach more. I'm not convinced we need to find more Masons. I think if we get those other parts right, we don't need to worry about finding members. They'll come to us, to your point.
That's true.
My brother. You know whose paper that was, don't you?
You write that?
You did.
Thank you.
He wrote a fine paper on the threat from within and delivered it at the Western Canada Conference.
Thank you for the exertion. If I might just, if part of your comment was, to Worshipful Brother Beach, is the saying about how we lost all the membership. And I don't want to do any bragging here, but I'm probably the oldest serving member of the craft industry, having served 60 years in the craft. And my entry into the craft was shortly, not too long after, into the 60s, but you got to remember, and ladies, that it was pretty close to the end of the Second World War. The surge of membership into the craft shortly after the Second World War was unreal. The size of this grand jurisdiction was unreal. And there was, every night that you would go to, every lodge had 2 meetings a month. A regular meeting, an emergent meeting, and it was always for degrees. As many as 5 men entering the craft. And that was our undoing, because we made them, we called them Master Masons and sat them on our seats, Christofferson is attempting to, correct his plans. And might I add, we're not talking to the senior grand warden, we're now talking to the deputy grand master-elect. Congratulations on her. One other thing, Brother Birch made a comment when, in response to your request, what is Freemasonry? What, make good men better. Have you ever stopped and really thought about that word, or that phrase? We already have a public that is looking at Masonry as a sort of an elitist group. What right do we have to say we are going to kill you, who we perceive as being a good man, and making you better? How demeaning is that? It's an inclusionary society we live in right now. And can you imagine that we would probably be better? First off, let's say, where did the phrase come from? Was it originated in our jurisdiction? I don't believe so. I think my recollection of it is it worked its way up from the south. That it was basically coined in publications in the United States. So it's not domestic, if you will. But maybe we should be looking at when that question is put to us, rather than saying making good men better. Maybe we should make that our goal in life is to make society better, which also includes the ladies of our life. And it's just something that it bothered me for a good number of years. I'm not of the mind that my concerns are going to change anything, but maybe the brethren would like to give that some thought at some point. And when you're ever asked about that, rather than saying that we'll make good men better, which I think insults men that they're referring to, that we make society better. Thank you for the honor of being able to speak.
Thank you. I think this is one of the most important questions we can ask ourselves. How can we be so pompous and so, I guess, elitist, probably some better words than what I'm trying to say, to think that we have the ability to make good men better men. I've struggled with that ever since I heard that, and I feel the same way. So what does it mean then? What it means is we have the ability to provide a place, an atmosphere, a philosophy where that brother, through his own efforts, can make himself a better man. That ought to be our goal. We do not have I don't have the ability to make, so I shouldn't have done that. I don't have the ability to make somebody a better man. I'm not that, and I don't think there's very many people that do, that are still with us. But what we can do is provide a place for a man to learn how to speak to another man respectfully. And that's our decorum. I love, Stephen Godfrey calls it our language. There's a reason why you can only stand up once and speak to an issue. It's because you're not permitted to take over the conversation. You're permitted to express your opinion and express your concern. That's a small example of learning how to speak in a more respectful manner. Back to the servant leadership thing that's embedded in this paper. We provide the Mason with an opportunity, and we do that by having a building, having a place, having rituals that, well, whether they're right or wrong, they're a focus point for us to study a philosophy. We have those tools, but they're not our tools, they're Freemasonry's tools, and they only become valuable when somebody uses them to try to improve themselves. And as I tried to point out in the paper, that's all of us, all of the time. So I think I would encourage you to follow Most Worshipful Brother's advice and say, think about that clause. Challenge that clause. Because if all you do is come out and let light the candles, so the guy's got a finer place, a more mystical, and probably the wrong word, a more solemn place to look at things. We open the volume of the sacred law for some very specific reasons. It's different in here. If we can provide that atmosphere for that man to study and interact, develop trust relationships, serve the lodge, that's the best we can do, and that's a lot. And that's one of the things that I wanted to leave you with was, don't forget, whatever you're doing here, everyone in this room, what you're doing is important. Don't forget that. You are making a difference. You know, it'd be nice to have the room filled with people. It will, it'll grow. These things have a momentum, they're like a flywheel. But this craft is what we have to protect. So back to the other question. What can we change and not affect our core mission?
Right, Worshipful Brother, you had asked two questions. You asked, what should be unchanged? And what should we change? And I would propose to everybody in this room that the things that should remain unchanged are our traditions, our ritual, and our values. As you indicated, there's so many benefits to the ritual and the modes of recognition that we do, the handshake, how we treat this lodge room, how we treat our memory work. You know, my father taught me that hard work resulted in, you know, positive outcomes. And so when a brother has to work at that, he values it more, but it also instills discipline in how they approach, and not only what they do in the lodge, but how they approach their own lives. So those are some of the core values that I think should remain unchanged. What could we change? Well, we live in an age of technology where literally anybody in this room can go on a website or on the web and look up whatever they want to about Freemasonry, and you're going to get the answers. If you know what you're looking for, it's all there for you to read, right? But I think we struggle somewhat with the veil or the perception of the secrecy within the craft. And it's a public perception because they can't see it, they think there's something potentially wrong with it. And so by removing that veil of secrecy to a certain extent, and I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that we shouldn't guard well the West Gate, but what I'm saying is there's so many things, positive things about Freemasonry that we could be putting forth without giving away the secrets of the craft. And, you know, by removing that veil of secrecy, we can, you know, shine light on the ease of what Freemasonry means to the men that are involved. And not just the men that are involved, but I can tell you, I don't know a single woman who is the daughter, the sister, the wife, the mother of a Freemason that isn't proud that they were involved in the craft. And those are the sorts of things that we also could shed light on so that the public as a whole, our community, can see what it actually means when, you know, a man becomes involved in the craft. So I believe that's one of the things. And I think we're doing that through improving the website, through, you know, sharing information through social media. We can flood those mediums with positive messaging about the craft, and there's going to be men in our society that are going to see that light and want to come towards it. Thank you.
Very good. Again, a whole bunch of excellent points. I'm going to try to pick out a few. I'm going to start with the ritual. The ritual goes back well beyond Freemasonry. The ritual, not in words, but in form, goes way back into Egypt and times like that. It's on Wikipedia. It's not something I'm dreaming up. That form of ritual through the degrees goes through Socrates, the Greek classic studies, all of those up through time. So whether it's got the language that we use or not, and why wouldn't it? Why would we bother changing the language? But it's a process that has been going on long before Freemasonry. So I think that's one of the things we shouldn't change. Should we change words in the ritual? Why? I sat in on a 2-hour meeting with the ritual committee, the Grand Line, and we talked for an hour and a half about one word in the ritual. And my comment, I had trouble keeping this to myself, was I got a lot more important things to do than talk about one word in the ritual. I got work to do, important work. So I think the ritual is one of the things that we should just say, it's good enough. In BC and Yukon, as you know, we got a lot of different rituals. In Alberta and some of the other provinces, Ontario in particular, they have one, in Ontario they have one ritual. Does it matter? Not really, so long as you're doing it well and you're getting learnings from it, I don't think it matters. So let's just leave the ritual